Welcome back to another episode of the Meet Kevin Show. Donald Trump is going to be arrested. We're going to talk about the details of, first of all, what you've got to know regarding the background on, is he going to be in jail? What's going to happen? How fast could he potentially be in handcuffs? We're going to look at reactions as well. We'll look at potential impeachment claims. If Trump were to potentially get in, could he potentially get kicked right back out? Then we're going to look at some of the crimes that are being alleged against him, and we'll go through as much detail as possible that we've been collecting since this announcement has occurred. So first, it is expected that Donald Trump will be transported by the Secret Service from Florida to Manhattan. There, the Secret Service will turn him over to the local law enforcement department, presumably the New York Police Department, the NYPD. Now, why is that important? Because usually you get put in handcuffs to bring you to a booking office. Booking offices are generally deemed to be secure and clean. Inside of a booking facility in a jail, you generally don't have guns. You generally don't have tasers, although sometimes supervisors get tasers in there, but generally no guns and no handcuffs. It's basically considered a sterile environment. You go through an airlock, officers take their weapons off, everybody sort of disarms basically, handcuffs come off, and you basically have multiple officers inside of a booking facility. A booking facility is basically like, it's kind of like an office. It's kind of an ugly office where you go through all of the motions in terms of they search you, they pat you down, they take your handcuffs off, they basically sit you down for a medical evaluation, they ask you medical questions, they process you, they take your property, and generally then you would either bail out, that is, you would pay a fee, you get cleared by the system. The reason they clear you through a system is because what if you have warrants out for your arrest in other states or even potentially other countries? Well, if they got you, they want to make sure they weren't the ones who released you if you have other convictions. So you usually wait there. It could be as long as an 8-hour process sometimes, although obviously we expect it to be shorter for Donald Trump. Then you would either walk out if you paid your bail, or you walk to jail until you visit a judge. And that is so that you could be arraigned. So here's basically how the process works. You get indicted, which is charges are brought against you. Then you are delivered to jail to get booked, which is the process I just outlined. Now remember, usually between where you are picked up and where you go to get booked, you're in handcuffs. But the Secret Service will probably be in control of that segment. It is unlikely during the booking process Donald Trump would be handcuffed. When you do your mugshot, when you get fingerprinted, there are no handcuffs during that time. So it is unlikely the New York Police Department will put handcuffs on Donald Trump. That is unlikely. However, it is possible that the Secret Service could put handcuffs on Donald Trump solely at the request of none other than Donald Trump. The Secret Service obviously does not need to put handcuffs on the president. However, rumors are floating around that Donald Trump would love to have handcuffs on because it would make a perfect photo op. It'd be the first time, essentially, an ex-president would be walking to a booking facility in handcuffs. Democrats might have a field day, but it would be the perfect marketing opportunity for Donald Trump to reiterate how the office of the Manhattan District or the New York District Attorney essentially has politicized a campaign against him. That is, of course, what Donald Trump is going to allege. Democrats on the left say, look, nobody is above the law, whether you're the president, a politician, an official, rich, poor, doesn't matter. No one is above the law. President Trump deserves his justice. A prosecution needs to happen. That's sort of your Democratic point of view. Let him face a jury or a judge. A judge could hear the case, or a jury of Donald Trump's peers in New York could hear the case. Obviously, jury selection for that would be very difficult because pretty much everybody knows about Donald Trump and has an opinion about Donald Trump. It's also not likely you would even get to a judge, which would be considered a bench trial, or a jury trial, which is a trial by your peers, probably for a year or two. So like a lot of this about, oh my gosh, is Donald Trump going to jail? Not even close. We'll talk about that. Of course, the Republican response is this is politically motivated. This is a weaponization of the criminal justice system. Why are Democrats who ran on the platform of prosecuting Trump now finding a way to do it. And they're doing it right after he's, well, I mean, a few months after, but after he's announced his new campaign to come back into the public spotlight. Now, what's fascinating about this is the reaction in honestly kind of what I thought was a little bit of an unlikely place. I wasn't expecting this, but my team sent me a note on this, which I thought was really interesting. Apparently, DWAC, the SPAC Truth Social is merging with, is apparently surging and doing quite well in after hours. If we look at the after hours 1 minute chart here, you could see when the announcement of the indictment was released, DWAC, DWAC ticker symbol, which is the digital world SPAC for Truth Social, the merger. This has surged about 9%, expecting more Truth Social activity. Obviously, if we look at a week chart, this is a stock that has run up over $150, and then it has essentially bled out on momentum. Keep in mind, I was interviewed on Newsmax. You can actually Google this or YouTube it. And I talked to Sean Spicer and I said, look, man, it's $150. You need to sell it. It's going back to $10. It made it to about $13. And that's nothing against, made it to as low as 12. It made it to 1, 2, 3, 4. That's interesting. And that's not to bag on Donald Trump. That's just simply to say, like, that is not a good investment. And it wasn't a good investment. We saw that at the time as well. But who knows? If Donald Trump becomes president again, it could be very entertaining. Donald Trump just posted the following just seconds ago, actually. Let's go ahead and pull that up as well. So stand by for Kevin to pull this up. It is Donald Trump's Truth Social. Waiting for the HDMI to connect. There we go. Okay, we've got the Truth Social up. Switch camera angles. There we go. All right, so what do we got here? Statement by Donald Trump 10 seconds ago. All right, what do we got here? Oh, dear. This is a political prosecution and election interference at the highest level in history. Wow. Okay, big allegations here. From the time I came down the golden escalator at Trump Tower, and even before I was sworn in as your president of the United States, the radical left Democrats, I'm actually surprised he capitalized each of those words. But anyway, he's trying to make a point. The radical left Democrats, the enemy of hardworking men and women of this country, have been engaged in a witch hunt to destroy the Make America Great Again movement. You remember it like I do. Russia, 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 the Mueller hoax, Ukraine, 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 the impeachment hoax, the second impeachment hoax, good Lord, the illegal and unconstitutional Mar-a-Lago raid, and now this. Quote, the Democrats, this is Donald Trump saying this, the Democrats have lied, cheated, and stolen in their obsession with trying to, quote, get Trump. The reference of get Trump is a reference to Letitia James when she campaigned to become the prosecutor for New York. And sure enough, she has filed a civil lawsuit against Donald Trump for $250 million. And now Bragg has filed criminal charges against Donald Trump. We do not actually have the indictment yet. Nobody has. Well, I'm sure the Trump ad team does, but we do not have the indictment yet. The public does not yet have the indictment. There's a lot of activity outside of this Manhattan office where Bragg is. Apparently, helicopters, law enforcement, and a lot of activity and people sightseeing right now. I imagine it's going to be quite entertaining. I think the day that he gets actually brought over will be kept relatively secret, if that's how New York could have it. Although I think Donald Trump would love it to be very public and a lot of people to be there. But anyway, never before in our nation's history has this been done. The Democrats have cheated countless times over the decades, including spying on my campaign, but weaponizing our justice system to punish a political opponent who just so happens to be a president of the United States and by far the leading Republican candidate for president, has never happened before, ever. Manhattan DEA District Attorney Alvin Bragg, who was handpicked and funded by George Soros, left-leaning individual, of course, is a disgrace. Rather than stopping the unprecedented crime wave taking over New York City, he's doing Joe Biden's dirty work, ignoring the murders and burglaries and assaults he should focus on. This is how Bragg spends his time. I believe this witch hunt will backfire massively on Joe Biden. The American people realize exactly what the radical left Democrats are doing here. Everyone can see it. So our movement and our party, united and strong, will first defeat Alvin Bragg, and then we will defeat Joe Biden. And we are going to throw every last one of these crooked Democrats out of office so we can make America great again. That is the statement from Donald Trump in response to this indictment. Now, again, keep in mind, it's unlikely that Donald Trump will be handcuffed. I think if Donald Trump had a choice, the Secret Service may handcuff him. But if we see this live, because there are two ways this could unfold, right? He could secretly go like at night in the middle of the night and get booked, or he could do it as a public spectacle. I expect Donald Trump would want it to be a public spectacle, and I expect the New York Police Department would want it not to be a public spectacle. But if Donald Trump is handcuffed while he's with people in black suits, that was probably his choice. If the New York Police Department takes him and put handcuffs on him, that would be a district attorney choice. That would be very interesting. I highly doubt that would happen. I think the only way Trump would be in handcuffs would be if the Secret Service did so. Now, keep in mind, after Donald Trump is booked, so he will be delivered to Manhattan by the Secret Service, then the New York Police Department will take over, in generally a sterile facility where there are no weapons. I expect the Secret Service potentially is likely to go in with him. Which means they would also have to disarm, generally. But anyway, the Secret Service would take him in. Inside, he would be booked, processed, mugshotted, fingerprinted. He'll be examined medically. And then he will appear before a judge who will likely hear, the judge will first read the allegations against Donald Trump. And then Donald Trump will be asked to enter a plea, no contest, not guilty or guilty. Donald Trump is expected to enter a plea of not guilty. After the arraignment, which is where Donald Trump will enter a plea, Donald Trump will likely be free to leave. That does not mean he can just not show up to court again. But obviously, since he's campaigning, we expect Donald Trump not to flee the country or something like that. So I don't think there's some kind of flight risk. He'll just, in a year or two, have to probably go back to court and deal with these charges. And in the meantime, they'll do discovery and whatever usually happens in the legal proceedings. Now, during that time, we will probably have the 2024 election. That is, I do not actually believe this jury trial will be over by the 2024 election. That means if Donald Trump is elected president, it is possible that Donald Trump could end up sitting in a courtroom facing criminal charges while being president. It's unclear if he becomes president again, and that case has not yet occurred, if he could pardon himself. This has not occurred before. The president does have the power to commute and to pardon. Remember, to commute means to extinguish a sentence. To pardon means to completely forgive and make sort of essentially almost disappear off of your record. It basically means you are completely forgiven, right? So in other words, the differences are a little funny, but let's look at it this way. Some people, like I think it was Paul Manafort, he was supposed to report to prison 4 days before he was supposed to report to prison. His sentence was commuted, so he didn't have to report to prison. So no sentence. He was still guilty, but so technically still violated the crime, but didn't have to go to prison. And then by the end of the year, within the last few weeks of Trump's term, Donald Trump ended up pardoning him. All right, so minor difference here. Okay, so what do we know about this politically? Well, first of all, if Donald Trump were convicted while he was in office a second time potentially, say he gets elected and then he gets convicted, could he potentially get impeached? It depends what the indictment shows. If the indictment suggests that Donald Trump committed crimes that are public in nature, that is, while he was potentially president between 2016 and, 17 when he actually took office, and 2020, maybe it's possible. If they're just private crimes, not that makes them any less bad, but if they're considered private crimes, maybe he can't get impeached. So there's going to be a determination on that, which we'll be able to evaluate once we see the indictment. Now, what's important to remember is that you need 2/3 of Congress to actually impeach a president. Donald Trump might be the first president who gets impeached 3 times, but doesn't end up getting kicked out of office, because you need a 2/3 majority, and it's very unlikely that Republicans are going to vote to actually impeach Donald Trump. Now, why would it be unlikely for Republicans to vote to impeach Trump? Well, because if you vote to impeach Trump, history shows you have an 80% likelihood of never getting back in office. How do we know that? Well, there are 10 Republicans who voted to impeach Donald Trump. Here is the fate of those 10 Republicans. Representative Tom Rice lost his seat to someone endorsed by Donald Trump in the next election. Remember, representatives every 2 years. Peter Major lost to John Gibbs, who worked under Donald Trump for housing and urban development. Representative Liz Cheney, she lost to Harriet Hagman. Representative Adam Kinzinger is not seeking or did not seek re-election. Representative Anthony Gonzalez did not seek re-election. Representative John Katko did not seek re-election. Representative Fred Upton did not seek re-election. And look, usually you don't seek re-election when you know you're going to lose. Representative David Vallado did end up getting back in. And then Representative Dan Newhouse did go on to win his seat again. And then Representative Jaime Herrera Butler lost in the general election, despite the fact that they were winning initially. They were the winning Republican in the primary, but lagged the Democrat in their election. So that gives you an example of an 80% failure rate to run against Donald Trump in impeaching Donald Trump. So people who voted to impeach Donald Trump almost killed their political careers. So this is extremely political, absolutely extremely political. So keep this in mind. Now, again, we do not yet know what date Donald Trump is expected to be actually arrested. We don't know the date of that yet. We don't have the indictment. Democrats like to make jokes that there are tens of Republicans protesting, although we expect that when and if Donald Trump's arrest is publicly announced before he ends up arriving, it's widely expected that there would be a lot of people. It would be quite the spectacle, I expect. We do believe that Donald Trump will be charged with violating multiple crimes, specifically the allegations related to hush money payments regarding Stormy Daniels. Now, I don't prefer to go through all of the claims in detail, as we've already done that multiple times. But it's worth knowing that that Congress has been fighting for a while here with sending multiple letters to Alvin Bragg and going back and forth, essentially demanding a release on information on what Donald Trump might be charged with. The last letter that was submitted by 3 individuals from Congress is right here, just 5 days ago. And this is an argument that Congress has the right to know what this indictment might be, because it could affect future presidents' interest in actually performing their duties. It is in their oversight jurisdiction. And you now have Congress, at least 3 representatives from Congress, whose names I'll list for you in a moment, are now arguing, why is it that the local New York County District Attorney's Office has downgraded 52% of felony cases to misdemeanors, and even after downgrading 52% of felonies to misdemeanors, their conviction rate is only 51% on the remaining felony cases. And then they talk misdemeanors here. Basically, that means the New York County District Attorney has a misdemeanor conviction rate of 28% and a felony conviction rate of 25%. And Congress is basically making, well, at least 3 individuals from Congress. I have to be careful when I say Congress. I don't want it to imply it's all of Congress. It's actually just these 3 individuals, Jim Jordan, Brian Steele, and James Comer. And when we look at this, we actually know that these individuals are essentially trying to expose the district attorney here in Manhattan, suggesting, why are you so focused on Trump when you could barely focus on murderers and felons in your own city? So that's an argument that's being made right now by these individuals in Congress. I like to call him Jack P., but Jack Posobiec called for Trump supporters to launch a MAGA strike, withdraw their money from banks en masse in an apparent effort to try to hurt the financial system, basically a way to blame Joe Biden. Bragg's office in the past has also said that he would not prosecute marijuana misdemeanors and other misdemeanors, including not paying fares. So if you evade fares in New York City, the New York District Attorney is basically saying we won't prosecute it. So basically, people who jump the turnstiles at the subways, why bother even arresting them? The DA is saying they won't even prosecute it. Trespassing won't be arrested or charged except a fourth-degree stalking charge. Resisting arrest won't be charged. Obstructing governmental administration in certain cases won't be charged. Prostitution won't be charged. Really, what's happening now is the spotlight is on the district attorney in New York. And essentially what's happening is you're seeing the right try to show how dysfunctional Democrats are in terms of what their priorities are in the city of New York. Of course, Democrats argue and say, no, this is entirely necessary. There are multiple crimes that Donald Trump could be facing here. Not only crimes in New York, but also potentially in Georgia regarding $130,000 of potentially hush money payments to Stormy Daniels. Obviously, there are a lot of arguments that, Michael Cohen's attorney has said that the Trump administration nor the Trump campaign ever reimbursed Michael Cohen that money, though it's possible that Donald Trump's trust did. Then there are other crimes such as Article 175 of the New York statutes for potentially falsifying business records, potentially campaign finance violations where there are extended statutory limitations for in New York, classified document penalties, charges of potentially criminal concealment of records to obstruct an official effort. These could carry potentially 20-year sentences per offense, mishandling of document, the criminalization of the concealment of the destruction of or concealment of, rather, documents, contempt of court, conspiracy to make false statements, conspiracy to break the law, potentially election charges in Georgia to, quote, find additional votes. Racketeering charges could come from Georgia. Obstruction charges could come regarding Jan 6th. But then again, a lot of people are calling Donnie T Teflon Don, that no matter what you throw against him, nothing seems to stick. That's something else to consider as well. Donald Trump, of course, alleges that he's never had sexual relations with Stormy Daniels. Stormy Daniels says she was pressured to sign a statement saying she made up the story, but she was actually serious about the story. She's had book deals about the story, which have advanced her, I believe, somewhere in the neighborhood of $800,000 for some book deals, and there are possibly more book deals coming for her. Ultimately, the list goes on, and it'll be quite fascinating to see what other information we actually get from these indictments. Let's look at some other information. Michael Cohen, the former fixer and attorney for Donald Trump, has released a statement. For the first time in our country's history, a president, current or former, of the United States has been indicted. I take no pride in issuing this statement and wish to also remind everyone of the presumption of innocence as provided by the Due Process Clause. However, I do take solace in validating the adage that no one is above the law, not even a former president. Today's indictment is not the end of this chapter, but rather just the beginning. Now that the charges have been filed, it is better for the case to let the indictment speak for itself, which again, we do not yet have. Two things I wish to say at this time is that accountability matters, and I stand by my testimony and the evidence I have provided to the District Attorney of New York. That is Michael Cohen. We, again, expect the charges to be made public within the coming days. Keep in mind, Donald Trump will be not only fingerprinted, but he will also be read his Miranda rights. He will have the right, as anyone would, the right to remain silent, the right against self-incrimination. We have, let's see here, we have more information from the grand jury has voted to indict him. Remember, a grand jury is a group of peers. It is not a jury that comes to the conclusion of guilt. They are just formed to determine whether or not there are enough charges to bring a case against Donald Trump. The case is, according to the Wall Street Journal, the case is unlikely to have any legal bearing on Trump's presidential candidacy, even if he is ultimately convicted. The U.S. Constitution imposes no requirement that candidates for the highest office have a clean record, and there is no legal consensus that states are barred from imposing their own restrictions on presidential candidates. This is from Derek Muller, a professor at the University of Iowa College of Law, via the Wall Street Journal. DWAC in after hours still up about 9.49%. Okay. Let's take a listen here for a moment to see what, well, actually, I want to take a brief look here at what Bloomberg has to say about this. So let's see here. While I pull up what Bloomberg has to say about this, I want to quickly convert you. I think this is my convert button. There we go. That's my Age of Empires convert, to make sure you remember that this video is brought to you by the programs on Building Your Wealth. You can now use Buy Now, Pay Later to get lifetime access to them. You can get life insurance in as little as 5 minutes by going to metkevin.com/life. This is, of course, brought to you as paid promotion. You can check out my ETF, my courses, my live streams, my real estate startup, and everything else at meetkevin.com. All right, so back to, let's see, Bloomberg. Grand jury returned the indictment on Thursday. Trump will be the first former president to be indicted. He will have to deal with these charges over the next 2 years, probably. Donald Trump's attorney says, obviously, we're disappointed, but we will swiftly and aggressively fight these charges and pursue justice in the case. Trump has said in a statement that the political persecution and election interference is at the highest levels of history. We already read the statement, so I'm not going to go through that statement since we've already gone through that. All three probes of Donald Trump are underway during his third campaign for the White House, and his Republican support may be waning, says Bloomberg. While his base, a steady 30% of the GOP electorate, supports Donald Trump no matter what, other Republican and independent voters are looking for a less dramatic alternative, potentially like Ron DeSantis or Nikki Haley. Although, keep in mind, a lot of drama coming out specifically about Ron DeSantis today, even in a cover story in the New York Times, where they're basically alleging that Disney has managed to get around all of Ron DeSantis' efforts for the next 30 years to potentially restrict Disney. So it looks like Disney potentially ended up playing Ron DeSantis. This comes after Ron DeSantis did make potentially some embarrassing statements regarding Ukraine that he has since walked back, initially calling it a territorial dispute, walking that back, acknowledging the severity of the Ukraine crisis. Keep in mind that Donald Trump has been very clear that he believes that the Donald Trump the Ukraine disaster, that the Ukraine disaster is something that could potentially lead to World War III and should take the highest precedent or highest level of importance from any sitting president to be resolved as soon as possible. Donald Trump makes the claim that he could solve the Russia-Ukraine disaster in as little as 24 hours. Now, I believe that is political hyperbole, but it is a way for Donald Trump to, whether it's through exaggeration or not, make it very clear that Donald Trump is interested highly in preventing any escalation of this conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Ron DeSantis has actually replied on Twitter within the last 9 minutes. Ron DeSantis has stated the following, and I quote, "The weaponization of the legal system to advance a political agenda turns the rule of law on its head." Ooh, this is actually really interesting because Ron DeSantis a week ago made kind of fun of Donald Trump a little bit here. Ron DeSantis, in a press conference, when he was asked about the charges against Donald Trump, said, I wouldn't know anything about paying off a potential stripper with hush money payments. I just wouldn't know. And he kind of alluded, he kind of used that as a sort of a backhanded way to slap Donald Trump. And even though that got some laughs in the crowd, a lot of Republicans thought that was kind of kicking Donald Trump potentially while he was down. So I find it very interesting that Ron DeSantis right now is taking this approach. The weaponization of the legal system to advance a political agenda turns the rule of law on its head. It is un-American. The Soros-backed Manhattan District Attorney has consistently bent the law to downgrade felonies and excuse criminal misconduct. Yet now he is stretching the law to target a political opponent. Florida will not assist in any extradition request. Don't worry, Ronnie. The Secret Service and Donald Trump will take their own flight. They won't need your help. Anyway, Florida will not assist in any extradition request given the questionable circumstances at issue with the Soros-backed Manhattan prosecutor and his political agenda. Well, very interesting. Let's see what other information we have here. Just trying to give you the most recent breaking news. Donald Trump is now expected to surrender early next week via NBC. It looks like every member of the New York Police Department, regardless of rank or assignment, has been told to show up in uniform tomorrow for potential unrest. So, okay, a heads up here. Apparently, New York is now potentially expecting protests tomorrow. This is unconfirmed, but this is a possibility in response to this indictment against Donald Trump. It does not look like Donald Trump will actually be in New York until next week, though. So it is possible that this information will evolve. Let's take a listen in over here to what Fox has to say in response to this.
The strength of indicting a former president. I felt she was saying it maybe was overkill. We'll have to ask her how she really feels about it.
Listen,
next
she's
time.
not here to defend herself.
She's not here to defend herself. But you said something.
Regardless, I don't really listen. I don't care because I'm not playing cutesy time. I'm the wrong host. I really don't care. I can't stand liberals and I can't take them anymore. And I'm serious.
I mean, that kind of takes away any potential of you being neutral here. So I'm just going to back off. But then again, I did go to Fox. But anyway, let's listen to this. Take a look at this. We've got Mary Trump. It is official. Donald Trump is the first man in the Oval Office to be impeached twice. First man in the Oval Office to incite an insurrection. First to lose the popular vote twice. Keep in mind, she doesn't like Donald Trump. They have like a disgraced relationship. I hope that's obvious. Anyway, but the media is missing the biggest reason this is so important. For the victims of Donald Trump, this is finally some measure of justice. It's been a long time coming, but after everything Donald Trump has put this country through, we have prevailed. I'll see you on my Substack. Oh, nice. Now pitching the Substack here. Okay. So, keep in mind that an indictment is not really a victory, right? These are allegations at this point. And I know that a lot of people really believe that Donald Trump is guilty, and that's fine. But it's going to be years before this actually gets processed, right? So keep that in mind. This is not a massive slam dunk over here. So let's see what we have over here. John Cooper. Donald Trump has officially been indicted. We already know. We've covered this. You got the New York Times, NBC. All right. That's kind of boring. Let's hop on over for a moment and let's see what, we'll take a brief listen to it. We gave Fox a shot. Let's give this one a shot.
Justice or in Georgia. And John Dean, still, when Laura puts the exclamation point on that, never in history have we seen what we've seen tonight. Maybe the last closest time was obviously when you were dealing with then President Nixon. And here we are tonight.
We have been close before. We have never been at this point. No prior president, former sitting or otherwise, has ever been indicted. It's been close. With Nixon, they actually drafted an indictment at one point for perjury and, for obstruction of justice.
Sorry, this guy's boring.
Thank you both for your insight there about the politics of this. And we're now going to turn to Finn Gomez. He is the political director for CBS News. Finn, you've been talking to several senior Trump advisors. What are they telling you?
Current and former senior Trump advisors. And one that I spoke to, John, just a couple minutes ago says that, echoing what Bob and Major just said, is that they believe that this is a, quote, net positive for the former president politically, that it reinforces all the narratives that he's been spouting, that the political class is out to get him. This advisor also predicts, the end of the quarter ends tomorrow, that the Trump campaign could have the best fundraising of the year following this indictment news, and possibly the best fundraising quarter of the cycle. Again, this is according to a senior advisor to the former president. But speaking to them overall, the sense is that at least initially, this will help Trump politically with Republicans.
Yeah, almost without a doubt, this will get massive donations to Donald Trump and a lot more attention on Trump than any other Republican candidate. Haley, the Vivek dude, Ronnie D. Nobody's going to get attention like Trump right now.
The Manhattan DA.
And it won't, this won't go away for the next 2 years. It's literally free advertising for the next 2 years because these cases take forever.
And it could
keep in mind, in a criminal case, you have the right to a speedy trial. I can almost guarantee you, Donald Trump will waive his right to a speedy trial. Why would he waive his right to a speedy trial? Because A, he would love to delay any potential conviction until obviously he's in office, because then he might be able to commute himself. We're not entirely sure if that's possible. But beyond that, it's like the biggest free advertising. All he has to do every day is say, donate to me. There's a witch hunt. Look at the witch hunt. And then he makes more money. It's incredible.
His chances to the nomination, and that you could see some supporters, consider other campaigns. And of course, it's still early, John, as you know. Ron DeSantis, who is expected to jump in later in the spring or early summer, has not, and he has been the closest in the recent polling to the former president. And there's others who are considering and weighing their own runs. So I think that at least according to these Republican sources that I've been speaking to, that it could have an impact as we get further down the line. So we'll see how that plays out, John.
And we have a statement here from Governor DeSantis of Florida: the weaponization of the legal system.
Yeah, we've already read the statement, so I don't want to reiterate any information we haven't covered yet. So I do want to show you this. There is a new tweet out from Truth Social that I just got. It looks like in addition to the statement that Donald Trump has made, Donald Trump has another post. Let's go ahead and pull that post up here. And let me try this soundboard really quick. Let me know if this sounds okay.
Gained the lead.
Yeah.
Lost the lead.
Okay, I'm just checking.
Sell. Betrayal.
There we go. That's probably the one Donald Trump is thinking right now.
Betrayal.
All right, anyway. I just want to make sure those buttons work, and they do. So thank you for that. Anyway, these thugs and radical left monsters have just indicted the 45th president of the United States of America, the leading Republican candidate by far for the 2024 nomination for president. This is an attack on our country, the likes of which has never been seen before. It is likewise a continuing attack on our once free and fair elections. The United States is now a third world nation, a nation in serious decline. So sad. I mean, quite frankly, a fantastic way, again, to pitch for donate to Trump, vote for Donald Trump, right? This is actually quite probably exciting for Donald Trump, because it brings so much attention to his campaign. So remember that Elon Musk mentioned that if Donald Trump is ultimately arrested, Elon Musk believes that the following will happen. If Donald Trump is arrested and placed into handcuffs, Trump will be, quote, reelected in a landslide victory. Now, so with that said, thank you so much for watching my coverage of the announcement of the Trump indictment. Get life insurance in as little as 5 minutes and get 12 free stocks by using the links down below. MetKevin.com/life, MetKevin.com/free. You get 12 totally free stocks via Webull, and you can even invest in DWAC if you wanted to. Keep in mind that those are paid promotions, and you can check out my amazing programs on building your wealth, how to become a millionaire in real estate and otherwise. Link below. Check them out. Use Buy Now, Pay Later if you'd like. We'll see you in the next one.
Game over.